All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And Lord willing, this lesson will be edifying and exhorting to the believers, right, the elect. But I wanted to deal with the topic of expecting, miracles or miraculous events and things to take place. Even when you look at how, you read the scriptures of old, right? It says in Romans 15, and right now I'm driving, so I'm not going to be able to just pull precepts, but I'll quote it. By now we all know where it is. If you're not familiar with it, just go and look it up, right? When I quote it. But in Romans 15, I believe it's 15:1 or 15:4. But it mentions that what was written aforetime, and aforetime means in the past, was written for our learning, right? That we, through, the knowledge of scriptures, might have comfort, right, and hope. And when you look at the things that happened in the past, remember that when you read in Jeremiah 30:7, in Daniel 12:1, in Matthew the 24th chapter, in Luke the 21st chapter, in Mark, I believe, the 13th chapter, in these chapters, it's their prophecies, right, about the times that we're living in right now. Okay, and more specifically about the devastating destruction and the hard times and trying times and faith testing situations that those that believe in this time are going to find themselves in. And I say those that believe because the rest is not going to be testing their faith if they don't have any, right? They don't have faith in the Lord, that is. So somebody who doesn't have faith in the Lord, for example, when the hour of temptation comes, it's not going to be a faith testing for them because they're not going to be tested. They're just going to go right ahead and take it. So it's not going to be a test for them. But for those of us who are believers, we're going to be put in more trying times. Remember, even when Yahweh Shai, right, the Messiah himself, even when he said it concerning this time of Jacob's trouble, he said it will be a time of tribulation such as never was, before, which is echoed in Jeremiah the 30th chapter in the 7th verse, and also in Daniel the 12th chapter, right, in the 1st verse. So we know that if the times that we are in right now, as it's we're getting closer and closer to the very end of everything. It's crazy as it sounds, but we're getting closer and closer each day to the end of everything, at least of this age. And we know that the times that we're going to be in is going to be far greater and more devastating than before. Think back to some of the things that we've had to go through in the past, some of the things that our forefathers, and ancestors went through in the past, right? Like, for example, the story of in the book of Daniel of the three holy children, right, where they were, and I'll just recount it, but they were they were basically threatened by Nebuchadnezzar because he instituted a policy that said that whenever they would hear this specific series of sounds, they were to all bow down and worship an idol that he made. And that would go contrary to our belief in our Heavenly Father, right? It would go against that. We can't do that. And being that those three holy children, right, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, which were their Babylonian names, they had faith in the Lord. They knew that they couldn't do that. So what did they do? They were put in a situation where there was actually no other way out. In fact, when they refused, Nebuchadnezzar got so furious, right? He was angry with them because they originally were in good standing with him, right? They were put in high positions because of Daniel. And and so hearing this, out of the original favor he had for them, he said, look, I'll give you another chance. In front of me, when this happens, you bow down and worship this idol. And they basically refused him to his face. And the only option left from there, which he made very clear to them, was you're going to be thrown into a fiery furnace, right? So you're going to basically be destroyed. There was no other way out. They couldn't cop a plea deal. They couldn't get a lawyer. They couldn't do anything, right? They literally were faced with life or death. And that decision was based on your faith. And that was the level of their faith being tried at that time, right? How much more for a time like this, where with all of those things having already passed, the scriptures still say that this time is going to be far more trying than that. So the way they got out of that situation was through miraculous events, right? The prayer of Azariah, which the prayer of Azariah is in the Apocrypha, that gives a more detailed firsthand insight / account of what was happening inside of the actual fire, right, in the furnace. Because remember, they ended up heating up that furnace so hot that the person who went to open it up to even have Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego thrown in there, that person was burnt, right? They got killed by that heat. And then they throw these three men in there, and guess what? The scriptures say that not even the smell of smoke was on them when they came out, meaning they didn't die. They were preserved in there. And in the prayer of Azariah, the detail is that the Lord sent an angel amongst them in there, and he basically, it was like a ball of air around them while they were in the fire, so they weren't harmed. They were protected. They didn't feel any danger. And they knew that, look, it's either the Lord is going to do something, and they didn't know exactly what the Lord was going to do, but they knew that it's either the Lord is going to do something, peradventure is what they said, to deliver us, or we're just going to die. But either way it goes, we're not going to, fail this test. We're not going to bow down to this idol. Meanwhile, our living God is right here watching, right? If he's watching, then he can deliver. So they passed the test, right? They didn't bow down to that idol. But it goes to show that in that time, which that time wasn't even the time of the destruction unlike any other that the scriptures prophesy about, but even then they needed miracles, right? They needed divine intervention in order to survive the trial that was put before them. Likewise, in the same time period with Daniel, right? And this was, once again, this wasn't like he had transgressed, and he was an evildoer, and so because of that, he was suffering this fate. This was for him praying, right? They came up with a law that you couldn't pray to any other god for anything, and obviously Daniel wasn't going to be able to keep that law, and so they found fault with him and then threw him into a lion's den. Similar situation. They purposely didn't feed those lions for a long time, making sure they're extra hungry, and then they threw him into the den, expecting that he would be killed. He didn't have a way out of that, right? He couldn't negotiate his way out. He couldn't, he couldn't do anything about that. He was just cast in there, and to the average mind, it would mean certain death, right? You're in a lion's den, and it hasn't been fed, or the lions haven't been fed in there, so you're gonna die, right? It's gonna eat you. But what happened? The Lord performed a miracle, and Daniel was calm. He was in there. The lions were calm. They didn't even eat him. They didn't harm him. They didn't touch him until I think it was the next day when the king came there and they opened the den and they found Daniel was good, unharmed. And the Lord performed a miracle at that point to deliver them. And once again, that wasn't even a time like never before, as the scriptures describe in our time now. So we know that we will need miraculous, divine intervention, just like the men of old did, but on a greater scale, in order to make it out of this. But when you look at the equation, they were put in a life and death situation, but they maintained faith. What they chose, what seemed to be death in this world, but was really actually life, right? Because they said, look, I'm going to keep my faith in the Lord. To this world, it seemed like they chose to die. No, Nebuchadnezzar, we're not going to bow down to the idol. Well, that's choosing death, because then he's going to throw you into the fire. No, I'm not going to stop praying to my God. Well, that's choosing death, because then they're going to throw you into the lion's den. So it seemed like death to the world, but it was actually life. Because what ended up happening? They got delivered. And why is that? Because the power of the Lord is greater than the power of man. So they chose the fear of the Lord and that the Lord was able to deliver them from man's hands. But now, had they chosen to turn their backs on the Lord, what man would be able to deliver them from the Lord's hands? Put it like this: Daniel was facing the lion's den. The three holy children were facing a fiery furnace, right? But had they turned their back on the Lord, Daniel would have been facing a lot more than a lion's den. Because that was the way that man chose to kill him. That was the way that they said, oh, we're going to throw him into the lion's den. But if the Lord decided to make you a target, I mean, innumerable ways. He could strike you with a disease. You could literally be walking and then just trip out of nowhere, lose your balance, and then boom, hit your head a certain kind of way and you're gone. Or you could be paralyzed, or spontaneous combustion, or a wild bird could just fly and just start attacking you and poke out your eyeballs and just keep pecking and pecking and pecking until it gets to your brain. Like, the Lord has so many ways to get you, and nobody can deliver you from that. So reading these things, right, and keeping this in mind, it should really expect, right? We expect, because we know that in this time when they have advanced technology and they have, I mean, different, it's so easy for people to die in today's world because of all the weapons, the tools, and the danger lurking on every corner. Back then, they didn't have guns, right? During Daniel's time. Yeah, they had bows and arrows, but they didn't have guns. And a bow and arrow, you had to be skilled. Today, a freaking toddler can be messing around with a gun and shoot somebody, right? There's so many ways that you can be deleted off the earth today, as opposed to back then. But all this is to keep in mind that the Heavenly Father is going to deliver us, right? By Hashem Yahushua, but it's going to be through miracles, because there is no carnal way. And when I say carnal, I mean like solution provided by man to escape the things that we're going to have to go through. It doesn't matter if you gather up, extra provisions, or if you have some place in the woods somewhere. The Lord can send 5, 10, 15 bears up in there, and what are you going to do? Eventually, you're going to run out of ammo. See, so we're going to be put in situations where if first off, if Esau the government decided to come up in there, that's easy work. That's very, very easy work. They could literally fly helicopters in there, drop those troops up in there, and you're cooked. So how do you survive that? Or when there's a disease, how do you survive that? Or when there's a famine, how do you survive that? No amount of food that's stocked up is going to be able to deliver you from these times. It's going to be through miraculous events. It's going to be through miraculous events. Listen to me closely. It's going to be through miraculous events. That's divine intervention. Okay? We're going to need divine intervention. So we expect divine intervention. And when I say divine intervention, it doesn't always mean that an angel with his eyes glowing just manifests in front of you and does something. It could literally mean that the Lord just puts a thought into, somebody that was originally trying to harm you, and they just decide to let you go. But that's miraculous. That's divine intervention. So the tougher of a situation you're put in, the greater the miracle to get you out of it. If you're at a dead end and behind you is danger and in front of you is a wall, and the Lord still says you're going to be delivered, in your mind, you know that, okay, there's literally no normal solution out of this, except something that is not normal happens right now. The danger just disappears. You have the ability to defend yourself, or that wall behind you all of a sudden gives in. And then now you walking through it, or something that is not normal has to happen to you or for you in that situation for you to get out of that. Okay? And when I say danger, I'm not talking about like just like something that you can just easily find your way out of. No. And the Lord is going to do that so he can magnify and glorify his name. So I got one precept. I'm parked up now, so let me get this real quick. Get this one precept here. All I need is one. All right, this is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 16. What's going on here, buddy? All right, let's take a look at this. Oh, it looks like this All right. Looks like the online King James Bible is still having some bugs in here. So at least I'm able to read it from this little blurb here. So I'll just read this one verse. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 16, verse 74. Hear, O ye my beloved, saith the Lord. Behold, the days of trouble are at hand, but I will deliver you from the same. And the Lord didn't specify here how, right? When you read in 2nd Ezra, the 2nd chapter, he says that the world will be, in mourning, right? And be have scarce you know provisions, right? For lack of a better word, but we are gonna have an abundance. But he didn't say how, right? In Isaiah 65, he says that my servant shall eat, right, and shall drink and shall sing for joy of heart. But he didn't say how when there's a famine. The Lord made a contrast, right? While some suffer and some hunger, we're gonna eat, right? At destruction and famine, thou shalt laugh. But he didn't say how. So the how is through faith. We don't need to worry about the how. All we need to know is that it's gonna happen, because the how really isn't that. It isn't the how isn't the important part of this. It's the what, and do you believe the what? So if the Lord says, I'm going to deliver you from the same, and you're so caught up on the how, until he tells me how, I can't believe him, then you're lacking faith. But if he says, I'm going to deliver you from the same, is not the main problem here deliverance, right? Is that not the main thing you're concerned about? How I need to be delivered? Like, there's a famine and I need to eat, or there's danger and I need protection. That's the deliverance, right? So if the Lord already told you, I'm going to deliver you, he has answered that. He has solved that problem for you. You don't need to worry about, am I going to be delivered or not, if he already told you I'm going to deliver you. So why do you go and try to bend over backwards to worry about the how? Well, Lord, yeah, you said you're going to do it, but like, how you going to do it though? Because if you don't tell me how, then I don't know. That's now you're doing extra. Now you stressing yourself out for what? Nah, dog. All I need is Lord, you said, yeah, you gave the go ahead. All right, cool. That's it. Why should I worry about the how? I'm gonna just chill. Just chill out and wait and let the Lord do his thing. Because it's human nature, it's human tendency to where we're easily forgetful, right? Remember, the Lord doesn't forget, but we're easily forgetful. Look at how the Lord delivered us out of Egypt. And then just shortly after that, before the Red Sea, before the crossing of it, Israel started talking as though they hadn't just experienced the miracles the Lord performed on their behalf in Egypt. And then he performs another one. We cross through that body of water on dry land. He drowns the Egyptians behind us. Clearly, he's delivering us. And then after that, shortly after that, Israel once again, it's like you have amnesia. But that's human nature. That's why I believe it's in the Apocrypha, it mentions that the adversity, right? You don't remember adversity in time of prosperity, and like vice versa. When you're catching hell, even with the weather, right? I'll come back to this point, but even with the weather, in the month of May that we're in right now, it's been cold, it's been hot, it's been rainy, it's been back to hot, and for some reason, when it gets very hot, you forget that just a few days ago it had rained. You forget what it was even like when it was cold. You just like, damn, it's hot as shit, you know? T-shirt weather again, and it is like gets you every time. You put the heater away, and then the next day it's mad cold. And then you go and take the heater out, and then the next day it's mad hot. Now you need a fan. And you just keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So likewise, going back to the point, the Lord delivers you, he delivers us. I mean, look at the things the Lord has done for us already. And yet you would think that after the one event, right? The first time the Lord delivers you through faith, you would think that was it. You never doubt after that again. You never waver. You never wonder. None of that. You're good. But it's human nature. You tend to forget. You not like forget as in you just don't remember what happened at all, but the feeling, right? It's like hunger. You can eat and get full and feel like I never want to eat again, and then give it a couple more hours and you're back to square one, forgetting what it was like to be full. So it's like you need a constant it's like a constant thing that needs to be re-upped So anyway, reading this again, 2nd Ezra 16 and 74. Hear, O ye my beloved, saith the Lord, behold, the days of trouble are at hand, but I will deliver you from the same. And we know how the Lord works, especially now when he is about to magnify and glorify his name. He's going to do it. He's going to do it major. So, fear not when the danger comes, because the greater the danger is, remember, the deliverance is going to triumph that. So the greater the danger is, the greater the deliverance. Anyway, I'm going to end it there. Expect miracles, and keep in mind that in order to experience those miracles, you gotta trade your faith. Like you gotta make that transaction through faith, right? Like the elder Yasharamba once said, faith provokes miracles, right? So provoke those miracles through faith. Because if you can look, I'm gonna say this one thing before I close it out, right? Replaying the situation with Daniel in the lion's den, replaying the situation with the 3 holy children. If they did not have faith, how would those miracles have happened? Through their faith, they put the Lord in a position where there was no other way but through divine miracles to get them out. But if Daniel said, "Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna not pray," they wouldn't have found fault with him. He wouldn't have ended up in the lion's den. And then where would the miracle have been? So that miracle would not have been provoked because there was no faith. Likewise with the 3 holy children, if they just bowed down to the idol, they wouldn't have been put in that situation for a miracle to take place, for the Lord to be glorified. So keep in mind, faith provokes miracles. If you're going to expect miracles, which the title says, you better make sure that your faith is on par. So now, with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rachak Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.